the rate of interest. As interest money charged by mutual banks covers nothing but the expenses of the institutions, such banks may lend money, at a rate of less than 1% per annum, to persons offering good security. Advantages of mutual banking. It may be asked, what advantage does mutual banking hold out to individuals who have no real estate to offer in pledge? We answer this question by another. What advantage do the existing banks hold out to individuals who desire to borrow, but are unable to offer adequate security? If we knew of a plan whereby, through an act of the legislature, every member of the community might be made rich, we would destroy this petition and draw up another embodying that plan. Meanwhile, we affirm that no system was ever devised so beneficial to the poor as the system of mutual banking. For if a man having nothing to offer in pledge, has a friend who is a farmer, or other holder of real estate, and that friend is willing to furnish security for him, he can borrow money at the mutual bank at a rate of 1% interest a year. Whereas, if he should borrow at the existing banks, he would be obliged to pay 6%. Again, as mutual banking will make money exceedingly plenty, it will cause a rise in the rate of wages, thus benefiting the man who has no property but his bodily strength. And it will not cause a proportionate increase in the price of the necessaries of life, for the price of provisions, etc., depends on supply and demand. And mutual banking operates, not directly owes supply and demand, but to the diminution of the rate of interest on the medium of exchange. But certain mechanics and farmers say, we borrow no money, and therefore pay no interest. How, then, does this thing concern us? Hearken, my friends. Let us reason together. I have an impression on my mind that it is precisely the class who have no dealings with the banks, and derive no advantages from them, that ultimately pay all the interest money that is paid. When a manufacturer borrows money to carry on his business, he counts the interest he pays as a part of his expenses, and therefore adds the amount of interest to the price of his goods. The consumer who buys the goods pays the interest when he pays for the goods. And who is the consumer, if not the mechanic and the farmer? If a manufacturer could borrow money at 1%, he could afford to undersell all his competitors, to the manifest advantage of the farmer and mechanic. The manufacturer would neither gain nor lose. The farmer and mechanic, who have no dealings with the bank, would gain the whole difference. And the bank, which, were it not for the competition of the mutual bank, would have loaned the money at 6% interest, would lose the whole difference. It is the indirect relation of the bank to the farmer and mechanic, and not its direct relation to the manufacturer and merchant, that enables it to make money. When foreign competition prevents the manufacturer from keeping up the price of his goods, the farmer and mechanic, who are consumers, do not pay the interest money, but still the interest is paid by the class that derive no benefit from the banks. For, in this case, the manufacturer will save himself from loss by cutting down the wages of his workmen who are producers. Wages fluctuate, rising and falling, other things being equal as the rate of interest falls or rises. If the farmer, mechanic and operative are not interested in the matter of banking, we know not who is. Mutual money is generally competent to force its own way into general circulation. Let us suppose the mutual bank to be at first established in a single town, and its circulation to be confined within the limits of that town. The trader who sells the produce of that town, in the city, and buys there such commodities, tea, coffee, sugar, calico, etc., as are required for the consumption of his neighbors, sells and buys on credit. He does not pay the farmer cash for his produce. He does not sell that produce for cash in the city. Neither does he buy his groceries, etc., for cash from the city merchant, but he buys of the farmer at, say, 8 months credit. And he sells to the city merchant at, say, 6 months credit. He finds, moreover, as a general thing, that the exports of the town which pass through his hands very nearly balance the imports that he brings into the town for sale. So that, in reality, the exports, butter, cheese, pork, beef, eggs, etc. pay for the imports, coffee, sugar, etc. And how, indeed, could it be otherwise? It is not to be supposed that the town has silver mines and a mint. And, if the people pay for their imports in money, it will be because they have become enabled so to do by selling their produce for money. It follows, therefore, that the people in a country town do not make the money, whereby they pay for store goods, off each other, but that they make it by selling their produce out of the town. There are, therefore, two kinds of trading going on at the same time in the town: one, trade of the inhabitants with each other, and another of the inhabitants, through the store, with individuals living out of town. And these two kinds of trade are perfectly distinct from each other. The mutual money would serve all the purposes of the internal trade, leaving the hard money, and paper based on hard money, to serve exclusively for the purposes of trade that reaches out of the town. The mutual money will not prevent a single dollar of hard money, or paper based on hard money, from coming into the town. For such hard money comes into the town, not in consequence of exchanges made between the inhabitants themselves, but in consequence of produce sold abroad for. So long as produce is sold out of the town, so long will the inhabitants be able to buy commodities that are produced out of the town. And they will be able to make purchases to the precise extent that they are able to make sales. The mutual money will therefore prove to them an unmixed benefit. It will be entirely independent of the old money, and will open to them a new trade entirely independent of the old trade. So far as it can be made available, it will unquestionably prove itself to be a good thing. And, where it cannot be made available, the inhabitants will only be deprived of a benefit that they could not have enjoyed, mutual money or no mutual money. Besides, the comparative cost of the mutual money is almost nothing. For it can be issued to any amount on good security, at the mere cost of printing, and the expense of looking after the safety of the mortgages. If the mutual money should happen, at any particular time, not to be issued to any great extent, it would not be as though an immense mass of value was remaining idle. For interest on the mutual money is precisely zero. The mutual money is not itself actual value, but a mere medium for the exchange of actual values, a mere medium for the facilitation of barter. We have remarked that when the trader, who does the out-of-town business of the inhabitants, buys coffee, sugar, etc., he does not pay cash for them, but buys them at, say, 6 months credit. Now, the existing system of credit causes, by its very nature, periodical crises in commercial affairs. When one of these crises occurs, the trader will say to the city merchant, "I owe you so much for groceries. But I have no money, for times are hard. I will give you, however, my note for the debt." Now, we leave it to the reader, would not the city merchant prefer to take the mutual money of the town to which the trader belongs, money that holds real estate and produce in that town, rather than the private note of a trader who may fail within a week? If, under the existing system, all transactions were settled on the spot in cash, things might be different. But as almost all transactions are conducted on the credit system, and as the credit system necessarily involves periodical commercial crises, the mutual money will find very little difficulty in ultimately forcing itself into general circulation. The mutual bank is like the stone cut from the mountain without hands, for let it be once established in a single village, no matter how obscure, it will grow till it covers the whole earth. Nevertheless, it would be better to obviate all difficulty by starting the mutual bank on a sufficiently extensive scale at the very beginning.